Hello everyone and welcome back to another stream from Aman Talks NRL SuperCoach, here to preview the round 8 SuperCoach round. If I got my words a bit mixed up. Great start to the stream already. Already so many of you in the chat as well, which is awesome. Thank you everyone for being here. It's good to be back talking SuperCoach as always. If you're just watching now, tuning in, give the stream a like as well if you do enjoy it. If you are new around here as well, please do consider subscribing as well if you want to see more content throughout the season. But yeah, Tuesday evening, TLTs happened. We're here to chat SuperCoach as always. So yeah, plenty to get our teeth into. Thank you to KJM312 for becoming a channel member. Very much appreciate it. Thank you so much. A lot of very nice comments already in the chat. Some questions saying about 5'8". What do you do with Jaden Campbell? People actually in the position of having Munster and Campbell, which I was in last week. I'm not in any that position anymore. But I understand your questions around wanting to just hold him because there's no obvious replacements. To be honest, I'm actually fine with that, to be honest. But yeah, a lot of big ins and outs for this week, so we'll get into all of that. Yeah, hello to Jason, Tour Pro, Sam, up to 515 overall. Thanks to Aman, that's very kind of you. I'm sure it's not just all down to me, of course. You've obviously made good decisions to get there, but that's a really good spot to be in. So congrats, Sam. Keith, Aman's hair is back. Joshua, Ryan, Triple S, Tom, Flarbets, OzSam, Arkanos, Jack. Yeah, good to see so many of you already in the chat as well. If anyone is wondering, I know some people sometimes ask, what did I have for dinner? Yeah, I had an early dinner. I had chicken rice paper rolls, homemade, very, very yum. Very healthy, very quick, very easy to make. Can't recommend it enough. You don't even need to poach the chicken yourself. Just get what we did. We got a roast chicken from Coles. Just cut it up and just use the chicken breast meat. Put it in the rice paper roll. Beautiful. Bit of soy sauce, hoisin sauce. We're good. So I've eaten well. So I've got the carbs. I've got the protein in me. We're ready to chat SuperCoach. So let's get into it. Quickly, just looking at where I'm currently. It's been a couple of red arrows in a row. So I've fallen just outside top 1,000. I'm at 1,105. We're sitting at about 600 prior to this week. Few start decisions just didn't quite work out. But look, 1,209 wasn't a terrible week. I'm just happy that even in those couple of down weeks, I'm keeping afloat. There haven't been disastrous rounds where I've dropped thousands of ranks, and overall still really happy with that start. To be 1,100 so early is very encouraging. Just need to keep making the right decisions, hopefully. Reese W says, and good to see Reese as well in the chat, who's very kind in the WhatsApp Gibberers chat, getting everyone to tune in, which is amazing. Amar, when you win the 50k, can you sponsor the Gibberers Christmas party, mate? I don't even need to win 50k, and look, I can't say I can sponsor it. I don't have that much coin in me, but happy to partake in any Gibberers Christmas party, for sure. Played Jenkins over Tamale. Yeah, there was a few of those sit-start decisions that did hurt people this round. Jack says, how do you become a member? I'm not actually 100% sure. I think if you go to my channel homepage, there are some buttons somewhere to say become a member. I can't see it right now just while streaming, unfortunately. Dylan Lucas, it's great to be alive. Yeah, he's a big in for this week. So let's get into the TLT summary though, just before we get into all the juicy content. So I'll quickly rattle off a few major ones here. So obviously Reece Walsh out for a few weeks, so he's one of the most sold players this round. Cobbo is at fullback, which probably is a bit of a dilemma for people who do own Cobbo. He's been disappointing, but the prospect of him at fullback, he hasn't had that many games at fullback to give a big sample size, but it might make people second guess whether they do want to trade out Cobbo. I'd be fine trading out Cobbo, to be honest, still. But yeah, Reece Walsh obviously is a big out, second most traded out player. Mariner on the wing and Piakura back on the bench. Nothing much happening at the Bulldogs, pretty much rolling out the same team. I think they had one change on their bench, but nothing notable SuperCoach wise. Roosters, obviously this was a big team that we wanted to look out for in TLT. I think for SuperCoach we've been blessed because Billy Smith was named at centre, so he represents a great cheapie downgrade option who should make some money. And also that Rob Toy stayed in the team as well because Dom Young was the one who dropped. Nwangani Tawasi is the one who's moved to the right wing, which is actually good for his prospects as well. Angus Crichton is also back. So a few big ins for the Roosters, but big one for SuperCoach with Billy Smith being named at left centre. Sione Finau is named on the wing for the Dragons as well, which people were hoping for last week. He's now there. Dragons don't have a terrible run of games for the next 4 weeks, so it could be a centre downgrade to consider maybe next week. Emery Gould's back on the bench as well. Dylan Egan also benched, but I think that he's probably going to end up starting. It's probably the similar thing that's happened in the last couple of rounds. Warriors have a few good ins, so Nickel Klukstad, Rocco Berry is back for them. That means Capel back to the edge, and Halasima to the bench. So he was a bit of a Supercoach downgrade option for people last week. To the bench, probably not great. At the Knights, big Supercoach relevance here with Dylan Lucas back named to start. There was images of him at the airport on the way to New Zealand. Thank you. A couple of people tagged me over on Twitter as well, and just brought a tear to my eye, to be honest, because I started with Lucas. He was awesome the first 2 rounds, and then he got his injury. He's going to be very hard to pass up, I think. And he's got a decently low break even. It's like 21 as well. But that means that Thomas Kant has now been named on the bench. He's got like a 23 break even, I want to say. So he's not an urgent sell. You can easily see this week what his minutes are going to look like. He's still got a good work rate. Even if he plays like 30, 40 minutes, he should still meet his break even. Then maybe next week you can look to sell him if you get some certainty on his minutes this week. For the Storm, few changes there. Kane Bradley has been named on the wing. They've had a lot of outs in their outside backs. He's someone to keep an eye on. He doesn't change in price this week, but he's 232k. He is a dual second or forward center wing, which is probably, I'd say, the most handy dual that you can have in Supercoach, but not a necessary trade-in for this week. And Will Warbrick will eventually come back and may take that spot back. Well, not may. He will take that spot back when he's eventually fit and ready to go. More relevant also, Nick Meaney returns. We have to find out what that's going to mean for Paps and his goal-kicking prospects. His percentages, if you look over his career, his goal-kicking percentages are actually better than Nick Meaney. But for whatever reason, Meaney's the one who's been goal-kicking. I think Paps originally gave it up when he was coming back from all those injuries. He probably just didn't want to have that extra headache of having to worry about that. He just wanted to focus on himself and just getting fit. And Meaney's kept it ever since, but Paps' goal kicking is so good. It's actually really interesting if you listen to the 167 podcast, which is the one with Munster, Jerome Hughes, and Pappenhausen. Paps actually talked about how he read some book on golfing and about the mentality side of things and how that's helped with his goal kicking. And I just thought, Paps, stop saying all of this because you're just going to tempt us into thinking that you're the gun goal kicker that we all want to keep. But it sounds like on that podcast he referenced that he would likely give it back to Nick Meaney. That's my expectation. We just need to see what plays out. Hopefully, Paps keeps it because he's a gun goal kicker and it means he's a weapon for Supercoach. If he loses it, he's still a good option, but he's just not as good, obviously, as what he's been so far. And of course, Harry Grant also out. So Bronson Garlick at hooker and Jack Houth also out. For the Rabbitohs, few changes with Latrell back to fullback, which unfortunately killed any prospect of him getting like 5'8 dual because he needed to play 3 games there. He played 2. It's almost like Wayne Bennett knows that he's got thousands of super coaches wanting to pick him at 5'8", and he says, nah, Latrell, you've played 2 games at 5'8", back to fullback you go. That's obviously good for a super coach, but obviously means we can't get him at like 5'8". Campbell Graham back to the centre. Lockie Hubner also out with a concussion as well. So the reason I mentioned him is because he's got a break even now of like 52. He's call it almost peaked in price, but not an urgent sell for this week, given that he's not playing this week, so his price won't change. Nothing notable for the Cowboys from a Supercoach standpoint. Gold Coast Titans, obviously, there was big injury news last week with Jaden Campbell. Now it looks like he's been ruled out for about a month, so about 4 weeks. Fafita was originally something like that, and then he's been named on the bench. So just silly buggers happening with the Titans injury reports. But named on the bench, you'd think he's not playing 80 minutes. Campera also returns for them. Penrith, not much happening. Isaac Tungo's been named at centre with Luke Garner out, and Mitch Kenny's also out. Manly, Turbo's in. So he's back at fullback. Not sure if people are going to be rushing back to Turbo after probably having a bit of PTSD with what's happened so far this year and other years, but we'll talk about him a bit more when we get to the fullbacks. Raiders 1-17, so nothing really changing there. Max Plass surprisingly named at hooker. I thought his injury was way more substantial than that, so I've put in brackets here, will he actually play? So just keep an eye out for team news on that one. Lockie Galvin's back at 6, so he's been recalled for the West Tigers. Now, I had written here that Luke Laulili drops out. There was actually further news, though, that he had picked up an injury. That's why Naden moved to the wing. Galvin was recalled. The way it sounded, though, was that if Laulili was fit and available to play, Galvin probably wouldn't have been recalled because they would have just kept Dewey in the halves. Look, the Tigers weren't great in attack last week, but yeah, so it's still it's a bit hard to still understand, is Galvin just back? Is he going to play? Or is it just a short-term thing where he's back in for the time being, but once they've got adequate outside back coverage, he's back out again. So just an interesting watch there. And then finally, Hiroti named at centre again for the Sharks. Iro's not yet back. I didn't trade in Hiroti in the end last week. after seeing him named, I kind of regret that because he's going to make a very good coin. He scored well last week and has another big negative break even. So that's just a bit of a summary on TLT for this week. People asking a few questions in the chat, asking how many trades you have left, says Tour Pro. He says he has 31. I have 32 going into this week and 1 boost left, which is a good chance of being used, I think. The 5th boost could be getting used this week, that's for sure. But yeah, free look at Turbo and Latrell this week with their break-evens. Yep, just quickly on break-evens. So I've got a graphic up here, which I do every week on break-evens. So yeah, Latrell has a massive break-even of 146, not negative, sorry. Turbo also 172. Look, these guys are also guys who, if they're fit, they're probably also good chances for Origin. There's absolutely no rush, I think, to be trading either of these two. Latrell's got tough games. Turbo has got a bye coming up, I think, just next week. So these are guys that you're not going to be looking at. Another big fullback is Gutherson with a pretty high break-even of 139. So I think owners, myself included, probably starting to wonder, is it time to cash in? Is he reverting back to type of previous seasons, or is this just a bit of a dip and he comes back to hitting those big scores that he was earlier in the season? A few guns as well, like Jerome Hughes, Eli Katoa, both have big break-evens. So if you didn't jump on them yet, you can easily wait. They also don't play round 12. Tedesco also got a fairly high break-even of 109. You know, he's a big talking point for this week. And Ponga, man, like he's 591k, he's sub 600k, and he's still got 105 break-even. He could be 550k, which is just ridiculous. But we'll talk about all the fullbacks in a specific section. Billy Smith, we already spoke about. He is the most traded in player. Negative 56 break-even, 317k. Roosters cover all of the major bye weeks and mini bye weeks. I think now that we've got that TLT today and seeing that Dom Young was the one who was not picked, probably gives you confidence that Billy Smith is first choice. So I think I'll be bringing him in this week. He's by far the most traded in player, I think, this week. I think, I'm just having a quick look now, 13,800, and it's only 6:30. So lockout's only been out for 6 to 8 hours. So yeah, he's definitely a big target. Dylan Lucas has shot up out of nowhere as well since 4 p.m. since TLT. His break even, I haven't got it on the, I've got it here. Yeah, it's break even of 21. He's the second most traded in player now, all of a sudden. So yeah, big moving week for sure this week. So just quickly having a look at the poll that I've put up on what run order people want to look at. So number 1 at the moment is gun centers, 5/8s, fullbacks, and then hookers. And we'll talk about other stuff as well. Before I want to get to gun centers though, just if you'll bear with me, I do want to quickly talk about the buy schedule. Just the only reason why is that I am getting to that point now where I will use this as a 50-50 kind of tiebreaker if I'm tossing up between two players. And especially when people are thinking about guns to bring in this week, like we're looking at, if I look at the top 10 most traded in players, you've got Dylan Lucas, Connor Watson, Jacob Carraz, Farnworth, Marzu, Cleary, Drinkwater, Paps, Toby Couchman. Apart from Billy Smith, all of those guys are pretty much 550, 600k plus. So there's a lot of people trading in guns this week. And so, of course, you can't bring all of them in one week unless you've got millions in the bank. So you need to prioritize which are the ones you need to get on first. And this is where looking at further ahead, like the buy schedule, will play a massive part. So I'll try to be brief because there's a lot to get through here. But this is how I'm thinking about certain tiebreakers, about picking players from individual teams and how many games are they going to be missing. And the reason I want to talk about this before getting into guns is I presume that when people are trading in gun players, they want to be keeping them for the long term. So you do need to think about the long term as well. So yeah, any buy related questions as well, keep them coming in. So just going down the list. So in summary, there are 3 teams that play all 3 major bye weeks. That's the Bulldogs, Manly, and the Roosters. So also just more generally, when you're thinking of gun players, you want to think of the origin gun players and the non-origin gun players, because the buy schedule is pretty much flipped in how you view it for them. So teams like the Roosters, who play all the major and mini bye weeks, they're perfect for non-origin players. Like your Billy Smiths, your Toyas, Sanders Smith, if he still has his place, Naf White, awesome, because they're not going to be origin affected. So they're going to be available for you. On the flip side, origin players from that team, like Connor Watson, Angus Crichton, Lindsay Collins, the issue is that they're going to miss those major bye weeks anyway because of origin, and they'll also then miss out on some of those other buys that are mixed in throughout the period of time. So if you're looking at round 12 to 19 here, and on the Roosters as well, they've got to buy in round 10. So even if you're looking a little bit earlier from round 10, say Connor Watson, because he's the 3rd most traded in player this week, Connor Watson will miss out round 10, then he'll play 11, but then he misses round 12. He has to back up round 13. Then he misses round 14 because his team's on a bye. He misses round 15 because of Origin, misses round 17 because his team's on the bye, and then misses round 18 again during Origin. So we're looking at 5 games between round 12 to 19. Throw in round 10, that's 6 games in, what is that? What did I say? 9-10 weeks? Put it this way, it's a lot of games to be missing out on. Same goes for Angus Crichton. So with those Origin players whose teams play all those major bye weeks, it's not good for them. Vice versa, if you have a team who has buys on the major bye weeks when they play Origin, it's less of an issue because their team was already going to be missing out in that particular week. So teams like Penrith, for example, they only play one of the major bye weeks, which is in round... sorry, I think I've got that wrong. Actually, they play 2 of the major bye weeks. But, someone like a Cleary, for example, we'll talk about him. He could be sold during the Origin period because he'll miss round 12, he'll miss round 15, he'll miss round 18. But his team's already on the bye in those weeks. So if he backs up, then he could actually still be an option potentially to hold. So that's some quick summary on how to look at the bye schedule. And then that's how you should be using it, maybe as a bit of a tiebreaker picking between 2 players and thinking if they're going to make the Origin team or not. Like one of the big questions coming into this week is Herbie Farnworth or Karaz. So Karaz, for example, if he doesn't play Origin, very, very handy because he plays all 3 major bye weeks. If he somehow plays Origin because, Brian To'o's maybe setback injury, same with Zach Lomax, then all of a sudden he's got terrible bye coverage because he'd miss round 12, he would miss round 13, he would maybe miss round 15, then he misses round 16 guaranteed. So he'd be missing a lot of games. Herbie Farnworth, he's British, he's not going to play Origin at all. He's not going to be as poorly affected by that. So those are the kind of tiebreakers that you'd use if you're really unsure of which player to be trading in. So just wanted to quickly explain that. I'll leave this graphic on the screen for a bit. I'll make a proper post either this week or next week with this particular graphic as well. I've actually already put a post out on my Patreon. It's free, so you don't need to be a paid member to look at it. So maybe in the description, there's a link to my Patreon. You can go check it out and just search Origin buy schedule. And I've written some more detailed notes on that there, pretty much with this graphic, as you can see on screen here. So it is worthwhile to still be looking out for this longer term. And I'll mention this at the beginning because I want to mention it throughout the stream as we talk about other gun players, and I'll mention, what weeks do they have the buy and etc. So this also then feeds into like what teams do you want to be targeting as well, players from which teams. Like Dylan Lucas, for example, second most traded in player. If you look at the Newcastle Knights, they've got excellent buy coverage. They don't have a single buy between round 8 to 15. So they're going to play all the major and mini buy weeks for the first 2 set of major mini buys duos. So guys like Dylan Lucas, Greg Marzu, Fletcher Sharp, Bradman Best, a bit more of a question mark. He might get an Origin role, but those other guys, they're going to be golden for you, and they've actually got probably the best draw on paper. So this table that you can see on screen here, I've actually re-rated all of the teams' difficulties based on eye test, SuperCoach points conceded, bit of a mixed bag of things. And you can see that the Knights are number 1 in terms of draw difficulty for the next 8 rounds. So long term looking really good. Bulldogs are 2nd, Manly are in 3rd, Cowboys in 4th. A lot of people are looking at Scott Drinkwater this week. Raiders are in 5th, Warriors in 6th, Dolphins in 7th. So, again, Dolphins feature pretty high up. So people looking at someone like a Herbie Farnworth, that is encouraging as well. So I'll just see if there's any questions. Karaz is playing Origin, people are saying in the chat. I'm not so confident. I think Toto, I think, is slated for next week return. I think if Lomax plays 1 game before Origin, I think he'll play because just based on how good he was going last year. Like for full transparency, I bought Karaz last week. There was all this chat as well about him potentially playing Origin. I just said, look, I'll take my chances. I want him in though. Like I love owning the guy. And I still feel the same as well if you are looking at trading him in this week. Drinky's still an option with his buy schedule, says Reese. So yeah, I think Drinky is actually a very good buy option. He's someone who probably is not going to be Origin affected. He doesn't play round 12, so that is not great, but he does play round 13. And similar to the Knights, after round 12, he doesn't have a single buy between round 13 to round 19. So you can pretty much stomach that first buy, and then after that, that you've got him for all the major and mini buy weeks thereafter. So he's generally pretty good in terms of buy schedule as well, Drinkwater. So Guys like Purdue, if you're holding on to a Purdue, they're also going to be useful for you. You don't obviously just have to, the main thing is don't just have a laser focus to round 12. Just be aware of the whole picture, because, a guy that you want to sell because you don't want him for round 12 will be equally valuable for you in round 15, round 18, and also all those mini bye weeks, which historically are actually more tricky to manage, especially now when you only need your best 13 in those major bye weeks. Oops, sorry, wrong screen. Just going to wait till round 12 for Karaz. This is also something that you guys can do as well. If you're thinking a fullback, Tedesco, I've been really hot on Tedesco the last few weeks. But and I think I said it on the wrap-up video yesterday, you could just wait until round 11, round 12, just with full certainty that who's playing Origin for New South Wales. You'd expect it to be Edwards. He played good on the weekend. But just in case there's any, if Edwards picked up a knock, for example, Teddy's probably going to be the next man up. You'd expect maybe him or Turbo. So if you're unsure, you can always play it safe and you can wait. And especially with Tedesco, he's got a bye coming up in round 10. And just be wary with the Roosters in general, because we're probably all going to buy Billy Smith, I imagine, this week. I already own Rob Toyer. I have Sanders Smith. I have Naf White. So I've already got 5 Roosters players who are all going to be missing out for me in round 10. If I added Teddy to that mix, I'll have 6, and that will be quite difficult to manage in round 10. So that's also another thing that you can think about with your fullback slot if you are looking at upgrading. Of course, don't be put off by buys, because his next 2 weeks are good for Teddy, but you just need to be wary that, further down the track in round 10, it will be a tough week to manage with so many of us having Roosters players, and they're all going to be missing out in that week. So just be aware of that. So let's get into the next set of topics. So let's talk about the gun centers. That's the most highly voted thing on the poll. So let's get into that. I'm just going to end the poll real quick. And then after that, we'll get into the fullback chat. So gun centers. So of course, a lot of people are looking at their center position this week. We haven't got them on the screen here, but the most traded out players this week, Jesse Arthur's number 1. He's made 147k and has a 64 break even. Shibasaki's the third most traded out player. He's 502k. He's made 270k. He's got a break even of 50. Shibasaki's probably not quite peaked in price. Jesse Arthur's, I think, is someone I would rather sell over Shibasaki. And the main thing is also this Bulldogs matchup. They're such a good defense. Someone like a Jesse Arthurs who's got very low base, he can put out like a 15, 20 points. And then all of a sudden his cash growth is just going to, he's not going to grow in price anymore. He'll be starting to leak cash very quickly. Like, for example, if I just gave him a score of 20, I'll put this link in the chat as well for you guys. It's a very, very useful tool that I use a lot. It's NRL SuperCoach Stats price change calculator. You can just play around with predicted scores. So if I gave him a score of 20 going into this week, he'd lose 35k. Then you're getting to a point where his total cash growth from his original price is only like 110k. The Broncos don't have like a fantastic set of games coming up. I'll just have a quick look at it here again. Sorry, just jumping between screens. Yeah, they've got Bulldogs and then Penrith. This could be a Penrith team that's revitalized. Rabbitohs and Dragons is okay. Then it's the bye in round 12. The next 4 weeks don't scream like massive upside as well, and he could lose money in that period of time. So I'm very on board with selling Arthurs and also even a Shibasaki. So, very common set of trades people are doing this week. Arthur's down to Billy Smith, Shibasaki up to a gun. So people are just trying to decide which gun they're getting. Thomas Jenkins is also the 4th most traded out player as well. So you can see a lot of movement in the centers this week. Max Wilson is saying that Jesse Arthurs will still somehow score even against the Bulldogs. I'm not sure, man. The Bulldogs are putting like massive defensive numbers up, and Rabbitohs couldn't score against them. The Knights couldn't score against them, although Knights are not really scoring against anyone at this point in time. But Bulldogs are an elite defense. So big question, of course, is who do you purchase? Just to quickly explain what I've got on the screen here, mainly on the ownership numbers. So the ownership numbers that I've got on screen is actually the ownership of coaches in the top 10%. So it's not the entire SuperCoach game, it's the top 10%. I like looking at that more than the overall numbers, because this gives you a better feel for like players who are more serious, invested, not casuals, if I can say that, where they got the ownership. Because, for example, I was really surprised with Marzu. He went off huge on the weekend, and I thought he was way lower owned. He was 46% owned in the top 10%. So no wonder my rank got killed by him going absolutely nuclear against the Sharks. Caraz, again, I think Caraz was like 6-7% owned overall. He's 25% owned by coaches in the top 10%. So he's already not quite a pod in your higher tiers. So that leads me to Farnworth. Farnworth is definitely the best kind of pod center gun I think you can go for. Currently only 8% owned by coaches in the top 10%. Very solid floor as well. You've got base power average of the season of 63, which is elite. Pretty much only Dylan Lucas, who we kind of even classify as a true center. He plays edge back row. For a true center, Farnworth and Carraz are pretty much leading it. So those two are obviously the ones that I think a lot of people are looking at. Val, I don't think is going to attract a lot of interest just because he does miss games during Origin. So he's not being heavily purchased. He's actually slightly more owned, surprisingly, than Farnworth. Garrick, I'm not going to comment on because he's already 76% owned. So I'm assuming the majority of you out there already own him. And if you're looking at buying him back, you'd probably wait, I think, until round 11. You'd want to wait till after their buy. So Farnworth and Carraz, honestly, it's so hard to split the two of them. If you look at their numbers on the screen, they're pretty much identical. Both averaging 73. They're 2K price difference between each other. Base power is exactly the same. So it really does come then, I think, to draw. Whose draw do you think is better? And Origin prospects. So the way I look at them too, I think Carraz is going to be more consistent for you. I think his work rate is generally a little bit better. And I think that is playing on the wing. His base is generally going to always be more up. Like Farnworth, yes, he's got good base, but he can throw in games where he scores like 45, 50s. I think Farnworth has got a higher ceiling though. I think Carraz, the Bulldogs, yes, they're scoring a lot of points, but it's shared across their field. Carraz, I think he only scored maybe 10, 12 tries last year in 20-something games. I might have to fact check that. So Carraz will have more games of 65, 70, 70, 90, 100. Farnworth is going to be your 45, 50, 95, 100, 120, 130. Because if you remember Farnworth last year, he had some massive scores last year that really did boost his average. For example, I'm just going to quickly pull it up because I know he put in a massive 176 in the second last round of the year. But even looking at the Origin period last year, so from round 10 onwards, he went 59, 49, 121, 72, 88, then 56, 50, 104. I think Farnworth does just seem to be, despite his really good base, he is a little bit more inconsistent than I think Carraz is. So Farnworth had all those tons last year. Carraz had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. To be fair, Carraz had 6 tons as well. But more of his scores are 92, 63, 80, 120. I think Carraz is a bit more consistent. If you're really worried about Origin, then I think you go Farnworth because there's absolutely no concern with Farnworth playing Origin. He'll play round 12. They actually verse each other in round 12. And both of them miss round 13. So honestly, draw is effectively the same when it comes to the round 12, round 13 period. Farnworth is guaranteed to be a little bit more safe. Farnworth is guaranteed not to play Origin. If I had to look at their games on paper, I think Carraz slightly edges it for me. And I think it's just a function of his team. He's playing on a better team. So despite everything I just said and the potential Origin risk, Carraz feels to me still just slightly the better option. I bought Carraz last week and I'm definitely looking at Farnworth as well because he's just a rock solid guy. 700k, you can't really go wrong with him just given how good his work rate is. Tool Pro saying Jermaine Asako. Personally, I'm not that interested in Asako. I know he's put out some big scores, but he's a bit too inconsistent for me. I want to just lock in centers who I think can, on any given day, I can just trust them to pump out 50, 60 and then have the upside as well, which, Asako can have, but yeah, I'm just not too hot, I think, on Jermaine Asako. He's burnt me in the past as well, put it that way. Fat McCloven, I should say, says, Aman, what are your thoughts on Bradman Best? I've had him all season and it's been a frustrating hold so far. I'm going to tie in the other question here as well from Just Common, which is owning 4 Knights too many with their shambles attack? The interesting thing with the Knights players in general, though, I haven't got Bradman Best on screen here, but he does have a season average of 65, so he's performing very well himself. Season average. Oh yeah, sorry, I've got the wrong screen up. Yes, a season average actually of 68, 75 points last week. Despite the Knights not scoring many points, all of these guys are good in their own merits. If you look at Marzu, Lucas, Fletcher Sharp, they have average base power of the season of 60, 67, and 51. So all of them are actually very safe scorers, even if the Knights don't put up a lot of points. I honestly don't think it's too many. It's wrong to have 4 Knights, despite the attack not being good. because all of them in their own rights are good picks, because they all have good work rates. And it's the opposite to the Bulldogs. If the Knights are scoring Supercoach points, it's generally pretty predictable who's getting them. It's Ponga, it's Fletcher Sharp, it's Lucas, it's Bradman Best, it's Marzu. Kuipers Paul's actually been doing quite well too. Like, the Knights are very Supercoach relevant despite their attack being quite poor. And the other thing as well is that, as we said before, rounds 8 to 15, they have no buys, and they've actually got the best draw, in my opinion. You got Warriors away, maybe that's not fantastic. Then you have Rabbitohs and Magic round, Titans and Parramatta back to back. Then you play round 12 Penrith. That's going to be Penrith without Isaiah Yeo, Cleary, probably Dylan Edwards, so an understrength team. Then it's the Dragons, Manly, and a Roosters team without their origin players as well. It's a really good long-term run, so I don't think there's any problem, buying more, having multiple Knights players. I've even looked at trade scenarios this week where I bring 2 of them in. Dylan Lucas is really tempting at 616k. His base power is so good. Obviously, his ownership of the top 10% is 0 because he's been injured for weeks. I guess the question people might have though is, would you actually prioritize like a Lucas above a Karaz or a Farnworth? Very, very difficult to say. The other thing with Lucas as well is that he's coming back from a hamstring. The re-injury risk is at its greatest in the first couple of rounds, but he's got a nice break even of 21. And I love his duel. His duel is so handy. I think if you didn't own one of Karaz or Farnworth, I'd still probably get one of them before I got Lucas. I just think long term they are better season keepers. Although I think Lucas is also a season keeper himself. I think I wouldn't probably be buying Karaz and Farnworth this week if you don't have Dylan Lucas. I think I'd be getting one of those two and then also adding in a Dylan Lucas into that equation if you can make that money work. Because I think, he only played 2 games so far this year, but he scored like 75, 97. I'm pretty sure his base in both of those games was like 51 and then 66. It's so valuable to have guys like that in your center wing. And he's generally got upside as well. With a really good run of games coming up. I think I'm going to take the risk on his hamstring, and I think I will bring him in this week. It's the 21 break even as well. He can. I just know that he is going to keep going up in price, and he could just become a little bit more unaffordable. So yeah, I'm very keen on Dylan Lucas as well. How many center wing guns is too many center wing guns? This is actually a very interesting question from R2 Rusty, because I was looking at trade scenarios earlier this today. You do want to be careful with how much you stack in certain positions, because you want to think about your reserve selections. If you're just stacking your centers, if you get Garrick, Karaz, and maybe a Dylan Lucas, that's 3 gun centers you want to play every week. You might have a Purdue. Purdue is very playable the next few rounds. You might still have like a Toya, Billy Smith. You might want to play Billy Smith. You're probably using one reserve then in your centers. You're probably using one at your fullback. You're probably using one in your halves, and then maybe one at second row. That might be the ideal 4 reserves, but then also you're missing out then on a front rower. So you just need to be thinking of like reserve selections. I think right now, obviously, more guns the better. You can probably be comfortable with, I think 3 guns is a good number, because when it comes to those major bye weeks, you want to chase the guys who've got those big upside, and center is that position. Garrick, Karaz, Farnworth, all 3 of them play around 12. So does Dylan Lucas. So all 4 of those have a case to be just your 4 centers. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. It's never a bad thing to have depth, because you can cover injuries, you can cover buys, you can cover your origin players as well. So I think I'm probably going into this week trying to get to 3, maybe getting to 4 by the time we get to round 12. But the issue with getting 4, like those 4 guys who I just mentioned, if that means that Purdue's on your reserves and you can't afford to reserve him every week, look, it's probably more of a mental thing where you start to leave points on the bench and it becomes very triggering, as I've noted in the last couple of weeks. So yeah, that's my thoughts. On Dylan Lucas, people are asking, Ryan's asking, is Lucas a buy in second row forward or center wing? Ideally, I think I'd have him at center wing just to add some consistency there. But I can completely understand getting him at second row as well, because the numbers he puts up is good enough for a second row forward gun as well. If people are selling like a Lockie Hubner and maybe moving him on, I can understand that and getting in a Lucas. Someone's actually asking Lucas or Couchman. I'd go to Dylan Lucas. Like, Couchman has been amazing. I just think Lucas, he's got the duel, which is super handy. Couchman also has duel, but I think we're not short of front row second row forward duels. Lucas second row forward center wing is so helpful. So yeah, for me, I'd probably look at Lucas, and the fact that he's got no buys in the next kind of 8 rounds is really, really tempting as well. So Mr. Callie is saying, sorry if you answered already, Drinky versus Marzu. I haven't answered that question yet, apologies, but probably Drinkwater. On Marzu, like we haven't spoken about him, negative 13 break even. He obviously, he had a ridiculous stat line from the weekend. Most points from tackle bust in Supercoach history, and I wasn't there to own him, which is a very sad state of affairs. All the reasons I said about Lucas and his draw, I equally like Marzu. Marzu's got a good work rate. Even when the Knights weren't putting up points, like he scored 56 in that game the week before last, and he looked terrible. And he scored like 40 against the Bulldogs in a shutout. Like his floor is still very, very good. The only thing with Marzu is probably the ownership. He is like almost 50% owned by the top 10%. So if you are looking for pods, he's not going to be your guy. But I don't have a problem getting in someone like a Marzu still, because his numbers are really good. And I do generally like wingers in Supercoach. Fletcher Sharp, also very, very good consideration. He's been very good this season as well. 591k, like he's fairly priced as well. I think Lucas would be my favorite of those 3. And I'd probably still rank Marzu second to Lucas, then Fletcher Sharp, then probably Bradman best. That would be my ranking of those 4. But you can go Sharp if you want to go for a bit of a point of difference. The last other gun center I wanted to quickly mention was Beau Fermor. Scored 63 on the weekend with a try. 57 break even. He doesn't cover round 12, so that's the only thing you need to be wary of. But he's at a good price. He's 496k. For me, it's the issue is that at any moment he can always get moved to center if there's an injury in their backline, and you're not paying that much more really to get a Marzu for 80k more, 100k more to get to a Dylan Lucas, 120k I should say. We should hopefully be in a position where you're freeing up enough money that you can. I think it's worth it in my opinion to spend a little bit more for those other guys. I'm also just not sure with the Titans, with Jaden Campbell being out, how good that's going to go for the entire team. So yeah, Fermor's fine. I think if you've got him, he's a good hold, but I'm not sure if I'm actively looking at buying. Ryan's also asking sell Thomas Cant for Lucas. I think that's a completely fine move as well. It's very encouraging that Lucas has been named to start straight away. His minutes might get managed this first week. He might not play the full 80. He might play like 50. He might play like 60. But long term, for sure, I think Cant will eventually need to get sold. I can't remember what Thomas Cant's price is off the top of my head, but if you can make that money work, then I think that's a completely fine move. Yeah, Cant's 415k. He's made 141k. He's definitely done a job. Not an urgent sell, but I understand with the break even wanting to jump on a Dylan Lucas. There's plenty of other gun center wings that I've probably missed out on as well. Plenty of pods like Mark Nwang and Nitawasi. I'm sure there's others off the top of my head I haven't discussed as well, but just wanted to quickly mention these guys because they're the ones who feature in the more traded in players for this week. Someone's saying Lucas and Couchman reek of Origin Smokies. Yeah, Couchman on him, he does feel like someone who could be an Origin bolter. Dylan Lucas, I'm not as sure about, Reese, just because back row for New South Wales is stacked. You've got Angus Crichton and Liam Martin were the incumbents. Hudson Young is smashing down the door to get selected. You've got Hamoli Olukwatu as well. Mitch Barnett can play on an edge. I'm sure there are other back rows I'm missing out on, but those are like 4 or 5 guys who I think I'd all rate ahead of Lucas, who'd be selected for Origin before he is. So I think it would take a lot for Lucas to not play Origin. Look, in the end, if he plays Origin, even if he does, it's more likely a bench role. So sure, he misses round 12, but he's probably going to back up those other weeks. And I don't own Kellen Ponga, and I'm not sure if I'm going to be buying him. So I feel like I need to get Knights players in to hedge against not having KP, because I'm looking at round 10, round 11. Titans and Parramatta at home look very tempting, and I think I need to have Knights players for those. So, alrighty. So yeah, people are asking Drinky versus Karaz. I know Mr. Callio earlier, you were asking Drinky versus Marzu. I might use that to segue to fullbacks and see if I can answer that question. If you are looking at Drinky versus Karaz, I would take Drinkwater. There's same price, 702k. Obviously, Drinkwater doesn't have the work rate of a Karaz, but he's goal kicking. And upside is probably better. Doesn't play round 12, but he does play 13. And as we discussed earlier with the Cowboys, he plays round 13 all the way through to round 19. So if you can manage round 12, then you're sitting pretty with Drinkwater. Really good matchup this week against the Titans at home. The other thing with the draw for the Cowboys, which is one thing to note, they have a lot of games in Queensland. So I won't pull it up on my main screen here, but I'll quickly just I put a post up on Twitter and I think also on my Instagram story on this, so you can go check those out too. But yeah, he plays at in Townsville this week, Suncorp next week, then it's Townsville. Then it's Amy Park, Melbourne, which is not good. Then it's Townsville, Sydney, Gold Coast, Townsville, Suncorp, Townsville. So pretty much up until round 22, he only and the Cowboys go to out of Queensland twice. So there's not a lot of travel, so that's really, really handy. The draw itself is a bit up and down. Like this week is good, but it gets a bit mixed. It's a bit of a mixed bag. But he's goal kicking, which I really like. Good draw. A lot of games in Queensland, which I do really like as well. I would probably pick Drinkwater over Karaz, and I'd probably pick Drinkwater over Marzu. The issue, I guess, is Iongi. I'm assuming a lot of people are selling Iongi. If you're selling a Reece Walsh, that's completely different. He's definitely a sell with his injury. But the question is also, do you sell Iongi? So I think there was a question here in the chat. Let me try find it. Yeah, Grant 007, Grant James Bond, I should say. How long do we hold Iongi for? So I didn't play Iongi on the weekend, which was not great. He's got at the moment, he's got a 53 break even. So you could look that he's peaked in price. But the thing is that he had a score of 25, which should roll out of his average very soon. And he's now got a good score of 70 plus on the weekend. It should have been more. He got sin bin, which was a bit soft. If he averages 56 from here on out, he should still make another, up until round 12, he will get 1, 2, 3 price rises. So he should be making another 35k. And that's if he averages 55. So not set for huge, he's not set for huge cash increases. And he comes back to the Sharks away, which is difficult. And that's at Suncorp, sorry. Dolphins, Knights, and then Manly. He does play round 12, so that is in his favor. He does also play round 13. Now, I think fullback is a position that's too stacked, though, that you probably will eventually want to upgrade him. So this week is a good week to do it because he's on the bye. So it's an easy excuse to sell him. If you are not in a rush, like if you're thinking you don't love Drinkwater, you maybe want to wait on Teddy because you want to confirm if he plays and not plays for New South Wales, then when it gets to round 10, Teddy's on his bye. I should say round 11. You can then make the decision to flip Iongi, and you can then get a couple more games to see how he performs with Mitch Moses, because the difference of the Eels with and without Moses was night and day. So I think, I put up a poll up actually on Instagram. I'm quickly going to check the results of that. I just want to see what the results were. Basically, my question was, Iongi holders, are you holding or are you selling? So as it stands, so there's been 300 plus votes on that. 64% are holding and 36% are selling. So 2/3 of people are pretty much holding Iongi. I don't hate it as well. This is what I've dabbled with my own trade plans. I can afford Iongi up to a Drinkwater. I could even fit in a Tedesco this week. But then I'm looking at him thinking, is he my biggest problem? Is the upgrade from Iongi to one of those gun fullbacks more useful than upgrading like a Jenkins or not a Billy Smith or like a Shibasaki to a gun center? That's kind of the decision you just need to make in your head. Because if you think you're going to get more value upgrading one of those mid-ranging centers up to a gun center than Iongi up to a gun fullback, I think you don't make that move. As it currently stands, I'm still thinking he's okay to sell. While he looked good on the weekend, he did have to score a double to get his 70 plus points. His base power average for the season is 37. That's generally in line with most fullbacks. So Bullard's 35, Pappy's 37, Gutherson's 39, Drinkwater's 34, and Ponga's 37. Teddy and Edwards are the elite ones in this category, 49 and 46 base power for them. So to answer the original question, how long do you hold Iongi for? You can sell him this week, and it's completely fine in my opinion. Otherwise, I think you see what happens in round 9, because if he puts in a low score then, it gets a bit awkward, because if he gets a low score in round 9, you're going to get to round 10, he might have a high break even, and you can't trade to Teddy because he's on the bye, and Drinkwater's got Penrith, you might think, oh, I probably don't want to make a trade maybe for either of them at that point. So then you might wait till round 11, at which point Teddy's got the Dogs, and you're saying, oh, I want to avoid that. And then Iongi's got the Knights, and Drinkwater's got Manly at home, which probably is a better matchup maybe. So timing for Iongi does feel a bit like it's this week, or you make the move in round... I think you make it this week or next week, which is tricky because you're not going to then see another game out of him with Moses. Because I think when you get to round 10, you're going to look at the matchups and think, well, actually, I might want to stick with him. At the moment, I'm leaning towards selling. Just to get to a gun fullback, and then I can have 3 gun fullbacks. Not that Iongi's not a gun, but I feel like, I just feel like the upgrade from him to another one of these fullbacks will be big. And I like Drinkwater. He's obviously been a bit steady for the season. His average of 70, but they've had tough matchups to begin the year. They do seem to have turned the corner a bit. Very good matchup this week as well, and I like the fact that he's also goal kicking, and I think his price is also pretty reasonable as well. So other questions, so Max is saying a bit differently to me. He's saying, I think upgrading centre wing is more important than getting the third fullback. I think that's a fair comment as well, because if you've got 2 gun fullbacks and Iongi's doing a solid enough job as it is, he's not a must sell by any means. But if you've got like a Jenkins who, with Casey McLean outside of him, he's just not getting good quality ball. If he's going to keep pushing out like 40s, but then you can get to like a Lucas who's going to probably more likely punch out 70s, that's like a 30-point upgrade versus Iongi, you up to a gun fullback. Teddy probably will average mid-80s, so there is the same points increase there. But it's more about the likelihoods, I guess. Do you think Teddy's going to be more likely averaging 80? Is it 85? Do you think Drinkwater's upgrading? Do you think Drinkwater's going to average 75 to 80? Because the difference between, as it on average is currently, an upgrade of Jenkins up to like a Dylan Lucas, a Farnworth, is probably worth more points than Iongi up to Drinkwater. So I still think I might sell Iongi, but Max, after saying that out, you might have changed my tune actually on that one. So as you can tell, I'm not completely sold. I don't know. I don't know what to do with Iongi. It's hard to say because he looked good. He did look much better on the weekend as well, and he's put out other good scores so far this year. Let's circle back to that question at the end of the stream. I might have made my thoughts at that point. Questions on Ponga. So Jaden is saying Ponga is hard to pass on with the draw and the price. Meanwhile, Rek is saying, is Ponga a dump for this round? I know other questions were saying, is Ponga a sell? This is on the kind of my socials. I think, honestly, guys, if you still own Ponga, yes, he's looked not good in the eye test. I think you need to hold, to be honest. Call it gambler's fallacy, but he's got another big break even this week. Like, sure, him to Drinkwater might be an upgrade. Him to Teddy might be an upgrade. But I think he's got the best matchups in the next month. Teddy has a bye coming up in round 10, and then the Bulldogs. Drinkwater's got a good matchup this week. Then he does have Warriors away, Penrith and Manly. Ponga's got Warriors away, but then he's got Rabbitohs, Titans and Parramatta, both at home. And even if Parramatta are improved with Mitch Moses, they do just always give up points to opposing fullbacks. Like, they are the best team you want to target when it comes to your fullbacks. With or without Moses, they've done this for many a season. Like, even Dream Bull on the weekend scored like 84 points. They just have a tendency to always give up points to opposing fullbacks. Like, Ponga is probably your best captain in round 11. What you can do then, if I was a Ponga owner, I'd be holding for 4 weeks, praying to God that he just goes and scores one big one. And if he can get back up to like 650, 700k in round 12, he's probably going to miss out with Origin because Reece Walsh is now injured. I think you just go Ponga to whatever gun fullback is available that week. If it's Tedesco, sweet. Ponga to Teddy. Plan to have the money available. Or you go Ponga to Edwards. If Edwards isn't playing for State of Origin, I think you just need to make that move in round 12. I feel like Pappenhausen, for example, probably isn't a buy now just with the fact that Meany's back. If he loses the goal kicking, he's probably not going to be a stellar option. I wouldn't be buying Gutherson at this point in time. He's got a very high break even. You're not buying Latrell. You're probably not buying Turbo with that high break even. I think if you're a Ponga owner, I'd be sticking solid, in my opinion. And yeah, Will Bennett says the same thing here. Isn't Ponga a lock for the Queensland fullback with Walsh injury? Yes, I agree. I think Ponga is going to be the Queensland fullback with Reece Walsh injured. Oh, what's happened here? Sorry, 1 second. I accidentally minimized the chat and I couldn't see what you guys were saying. Harry says, can you shout out to my mate Brandon? He's a massive Doggies fan. Hello, Brandon. And good time to be a Doggies fan, I'll tell you that much. Walsh, yeah. So on Reece Walsh, so he is a sell, of course. So who do you buy if you're selling Reece Walsh? Who do you get? So, sorry, I'm just reminding myself of Reece Walsh's price. 600k. I think if you're buying new, I think you buy... So the question is, people are going to say, is Drinkwater versus Teddy? I think that's the big fullback discussion this week. Overall, I prefer Teddy as a fullback option, just in general. I think he's got better work rate. I think he's more likely to score bigger. Good next couple of matchups. I think, though, if I was buying now this week, I'd buy Drinkwater first. He's cheaper. Good matchup this week that he can be captainable in. And then I think with Teddy, I'm leaning towards waiting until round 12, just because, yes, he might put some good scores in the next couple of rounds, but round 10, round 11, it's the bye and then the Bulldogs. I'm willing to cop him going decently in the next 2 weeks and then taking a chance that maybe the weeks after he goes a little bit quieter versus a Drinkwater who's got all 4 of his next games in Queensland and he's goal kicking and a really good matchup this week as well. And he's like 145k cheaper. Because I think that what that lets you do though is, and someone asked me earlier on Twitter, it's all about the combinations. You need to think about combinations. Like it's not just Tedesco, it's Tedesco plus someone else. Or Drinkwater plus someone else. So if the person that asked me earlier was saying, I want Tedesco, but if I get Drinkwater, I can get Herbie. So I was like, well, I think Drinkwater plus Herbie is probably better than Tedesco and a 550k center, who I can't even think of off the top of my head. So you have to think in combinations, and I think that difference in money, I think I like Drinkwater for that money saving as well. And he's a pod as well. He's 2% owned in the top 10%. Obviously, that's going to creep up this week, but it's a good opportunity to jump on someone ahead of the curve, which is generally, that's the whole point of SuperCoach. You want to get on the guys a little bit earlier than everyone else so that while they're trading for your players, you're making other moves elsewhere and constantly trying to, stay ahead of the pack. On Gutherson, because I know there's a lot of questions here on Gutherson, and also give the stream a like, guys. This might be the longest stream ever. I'm on 55 minutes and I feel like I've barely spoken about anything. But yeah, on Gutherson, so Irish Simon 99 is asking, would you go Gutherson to Drinkwater? Already have Teddy and Pappenhausen. So yeah, I'm in this position where I've got Gutherson. The next 4 weeks aren't terrible. Anzac Day Clash is a day game. Tigers, Warriors, Broncos. I think with Gutherson in general, I'm probably keeping at least for the next 4 weeks and then reevaluate in round 12. Because if I instead get Drinkwater and have Pappenhausen, when it gets to round 12, I might go Gutherson to Tedesco. Like, I'm just looking at the next 4 weeks and thinking I ideally just want to keep the guys who don't have any buys. So Gutherson fits that bill. If you really wanted to swing for the fences, Gutherson down to Ponga for easy 200k, probably getting a better draw as well. But I think with Gutherson, I still feel like there's more to give from him in terms of big scores. The last couple of weeks have been a little bit down. It's actually coincided with the Dragons winning though. In the games they've lost is when he's gone big. Yeah, like he is going to lose a lot of money. He's probably going to get back into the 600s, which is not great. But he's shown a lot this season already, and I don't want to sell him too early, in the hope that there are some decent matchups coming up. Hopefully, he can just jag another big score. I probably wouldn't be going Gutherson to Drinkwater. I probably wouldn't be going Gutherson to anyone at the moment. I know some people are saying to sell him early in the chat. I think someone was saying Clinton Sellerson earlier. Nice little pun. I don't think I'll be... Yeah, at the moment, I don't think I'll be selling Gutherson. I feel like I've got more priority trades in my team, like Jesse Arthurs, Shibasaki, Jenkins. Like getting rid of these mid-ranger guys to try to get up to other guns and keeping a Gutherson and trying to get up to guns in other ways. Look, I don't hate the sell. I understand it. Very high break. Even the last couple of weeks have been a bit down. You just don't want to... Yeah, I just don't think you want to jump early and miss out on some other big scores. Drinkwater, I understand the appeal though. Let's see. David Schuster, welcome to the channel as a member. Very much appreciate that as well. Thank you very much. Max is saying, think the only two buys are Drinkwater or Teddy. All right, let's get on to the next topic. There's a lot of time spent on fullbacks and gun centers. I think let's talk about 5/8s. I'm seeing a few questions on Jaden Campbell replacements. So people very early in the chat were asking, is it okay to just hold Jaden Campbell if you have like a Munster already? I think that's completely fine, to be honest, because 5/8 isn't a super high upside position as it currently stands, not a lot of depth, and you can own Munster up until Origin. So I sold Campbell last week. I actually changed my trades. I originally was selling Shibasaki to Hiroti. In the end, with the Campbell news, I changed that trade and instead went Campbell out to Dewey. The reason I went to Adam Dewey was the dual status. I thought he might get an extended run in the halves, and it was his 100th game, so I tried to buy into the narrative against the Eels. Didn't quite work out, but it is what it is. That move freed up some money as well for me to do other trades this week. Excuse me. Campbell's out for about a month, so I think he is someone that you can sell. But yeah, there's no rush to sell if you don't need to. I've just got a few options on the screen here, some pod options. Your guns are Munster, Brown, and Matt Burton. Munster for me is still number one. I think if you don't own Munster and you want to just get someone in, for at least for the next 4 weeks, Munster will play. I think he's the one. Next would probably be Matt Burton. So he scored 65 points on the weekend without goal kicking. I suspect he will get the goal kicking back at some point. I assume that was maybe just first game back from injury, so maybe let's not give him that unnecessarily. And Matt Burton plays round 12, which is very handy, and we covered it earlier. Bulldogs players cover all major bye weeks. So Matt Burton will be useful. Someone in the chat, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe Matt Burton was 18th man for New South Wales last year, but I still think that means that you're eligible to play for your club on those weeks. So maybe someone in the chat, if you can help me out with that one. Because he's got the Dolphins at home in round 12, which is a good matchup. He's got Broncos, he's got Titans at Magic Round, Canberra, Roosters. It's an up and down draw, but there's generally some good ones in there. And I think, if Matt Burton goal kicked on the weekend, I think Crichton scored like 22 points in goal kicks, maybe 28. If Burton gets that, we're looking at 85, 90 points. And I think a lot more people are looking at directly doing Campbell to Burton. So I think Burton is probably second behind Munster if you don't already own Munster. Dillbags would probably be third for me. It's obviously difficult to invest this week when he's on the bye. If you're thinking of just going straight, you don't care about 5/8, you just want to free up money there. If you already own another playing option, there's a lot of chat about Latu Fainu, who will eventually take over that 5/8 spot, or the halfback spot, for the Tigers. I think he's like 280k, 240k. I'm just going to quickly double check that so I don't say it wrong. He's 248k. You could take the punt and go on him early. He's due back in 1 to 2 weeks, I believe, from his thumb injury. And you can just free up like bulk cash and then just spread that around your squad, getting guns elsewhere. I don't hate that strategy, to be honest, because 5/8 is a bit of a meh position. I just went with Dewey because I did want some cover just with Munster being on Origin. I'm going to keep him, so having someone who I know is still going to play for their team. He's goal kicking as well. And I like the duel. The reason I also went with Adam Dewey, and again, you can still buy Adam Dewey if you want, is that if you're unsure with which 5/8 you want, if you buy Dewey, you're still freeing up like 300 something K. And then once you know which gun 5/8 you want, you can sell one of your peaked centers and switch Dewey down to center wing, and then you can buy your gun 5/8 that way. So his dual status is also handy. So I don't mind Dewey for that reason. Everyone else is kind of a big point difference. Blaze Talangi, average of 60 at 565k. Metcalf and Harris Tavita, excuse me, kind of in the late 400s. They're probably awkwardly priced, and I don't think I'd be looking at them. Trindle, if you really want to go for a big point of difference, but he scares me with his really low scores. His base power average for the season is 16. Yeah, I know he needs attacking stats, but yeah, not for me. And then you've got Ethan Strange, who's got a negative break even, negative 29. The Raiders have actually got a pretty good buy schedule as well. Again, he's a little bit awkwardly priced at 436k, but he's looked better at the beginning of the season. So I don't hate him as well, as a bit of a punt, but that's probably all I'm going to say on 5/8. It's a bit of a meh position, so I don't really want to spend too much time on it. Yeah, Burton 18th man for game 1 and game 3 last year. 18-man must stay with the squad in case they need to be activated for HIA foul play. Okay. I'll double check that, and I'll put something out on Twitter in the next couple of days. But yeah, of course, if that's the situation for Matt Burton, does ruin his appeal, because as we said before, Origin players for those teams who play all the major bye weeks is not good, because he'd miss round 12 and he would miss round 13. So just double check those rules. If he's okay to play, I think he's fine to bring in. If not, then I'd probably shy away, and I'd probably instead go Munster. Or you can just cop an A this week and then just buy deal bags next week. He scored 60 on the weekend. Excuse me. He scored 60 on the weekend, and Eels looked much better with Mitch Moses in the squad. Pat Reese is asking thoughts on Tom Dearden. Yeah, so Tom Dearden I haven't spoken about. So he probably will be available during the Origin period, because you'd suspect that Munster is going to be playing 5'8" for them. Some low scores in him this year, like 18, 28, 21. That was his opening 3 games of the season. Then he had a big 97, 55, and 42. So look, the 3-round average is 65, 5-round average of 49. So he's a bit awkwardly priced again. He's 540k. Just the problem with 5'8", it just feels like there's a lot of guys who are just performing at value, not a whole heap of insanely good value prospects, which is why I don't hate that Latu Fainu play. If you just want to take that punt. Or what I did last week, I just went with a mid-ranging guy like a Dewey. I just kind of thought he was best of the bad bunch. I was like, at least he's goal kicking, at least he has dual status. So that was the reason why I pivoted to Dewey in the end. Kez is saying, purely thinking of Strange for round 12, round 13 cover. If I remind myself of the Origin schedule for the Raiders, so they play round 12 and 13. They miss 15, but then they do play 16 and 18. Someone's also asking Cody Walker. Oh God, I haven't even looked at Cody Walker all season. I'm just going to remind myself of his price. He's 350k. He's dual 5'8" halfback, which is handy. He scored 13 points on the weekend. Did he play the full 80 minutes? I'm just going to quickly check. He played 57 minutes. Okay, so he didn't play the full 80. I don't know. He's got an 88 break even, and he's playing Melbourne away. He can easily score another 20 points. Doesn't play around 12. I don't think in confidence I can invest Cody Walker. He feels like one of those options who he's at his price for a reason. He's lost 208k on his starting price. I think famous last words. I think the Cody Walker of seasons gone past is... actually, you know what? That's not true. He averaged like 57 last year. If he can get back to a 50 average, he's definitely value. But this Rabbitohs have got a pretty tough run of games with... they've got Warriors this week. They've got Newcastle, Broncos, Tigers, and then the bye. Look, he's not my favourite, put it that way. You can take the punt, but high break even, I think he's going to lose money. Tough matchup. I'd probably wait. Probably is good that Latrell's back at fullback for him as well, but if I was buying, I wouldn't buy now. I'd want to see some improved signs before I invest. Joey Manu fan, thoughts on Nothing Campbell to Fainu? Yeah, I've answered that question already, so just rewind maybe a few minutes and you'll get that. I just do want to keep going through all the other stuff. So I'll talk quickly about other cheapie centre wings. We've already spoken about Billy Smith, so nothing more to say there. Spoke about Kane Bradley at the beginning. Hiroti, I think the ship's kind of sailed on him. On these other guys who have peaked in price, so you've got Arthur, Shibasaki, and Tamale, and Jenkins, and Rob Toya. I think with Rob Toya, I'm probably just going to keep him for the bye coverage for the major and mini bye weeks, now that we know that he's kind of got this spot. Jesse Arthurs and Shibasaki, I've spoken about them a lot already at the beginning of the stream. I think they're completely fine to sell. They've got a tough matchup against the Dogs this week, and then it's Penrith, albeit in Suncorp, but we saw some good signs from Penrith on the weekend. With Jenkins, so yeah, someone's asking John's asking how many weeks left until Jenkins peaks, do I think? So again, I'm going to quickly jump on the price change calculator from NRL SuperCoach Stats. So just quickly looking at Jenkins, he had those big games early in the season. I think what we've seen the last kind of 3 to 4 weeks is more likely what we're going to get from him in terms of output. Like Casey McLean is just not good for him. And Brian To'o could be back very soon. Now, when Brian To'o was playing, Jenkins was in favour of McLean, but there is every chance that Jenkins just drops out. He's got a break even of 48, and the last 3 weeks we're looking at 66, 47, and 38. So it's a 3-round average of 50. So in the price change calculator, if I just chuck in scores of 50, I'll give him scores of 50 for the next 2 weeks. Actually, I'll give it for the next 3 weeks. Yeah, so Jenkins will go up by like 2K, then he'll go up 3K, and then 12K. So I think he's more or less peaked in price, just based on what he's seeing at the moment. If he's going to keep pumping out a 3-round average of 50, he is probably, he's probably peaked at price. His break even is, it's a little bit high. Manly, I think, is a good matchup at home. I think he's fine to sell. He does play round 12, but he might not even get he might not even be at the team at that point. And yeah, I think if he's your ticket to a gun, like I can see people this week boosting Arthur, Shibasaki, and Jenkins for like Billy Smith and 2 guns. I think that's a perfectly acceptable set of trades to be doing. That could be what I'm also doing this week. So yeah, I think Jenkins probably has 1, maybe 2 more weeks in him. Otherwise, effectively has probably peaked in price, in my opinion. Sione for now, I think he's on the bubble for next week for price changes, so no need to jump on him early this week. And Billy Smith, I think we spoke about him earlier. Yeah, close to a must, I think, as a trade-in for this week. Is Hugh saying, is Tamale a season keeper? He's probably not a season keeper, but he's got good work rate. So his base power average for the season is 43, very similar to Rob Toya. With Tamale, the good thing is that because he's got these kind of good, he's got a good work rate in him. If I give him a season average, his season average is 58. If he scores 58 for the next 8 rounds, he's going to go up another 90k. So with Tamale, he's probably going to hold value. So luckily with him, barring any majorly low games, he's not going to go down in price. So I think he's a good play this week against the Dolphins at home. And he plays round 12, round 13. At the very least, I'd be keeping him for that. And then come round 15, you can probably reevaluate what you want to do with him. I wouldn't call him a season keeper, but a very good midterm hold, in my opinion. Jason saying, is Hudson Young a must? I'll quickly touch on second row forwards. Look, the way he's going, sure, he looks like a must, but 3 games in a row scoring 2 tries, base power average of 62. He's 823k with a break even of 23. I think the ship sailed. I don't think he's a must. Sorry. So, sorry to burst the bubble. If you've jumped on Hudson Young, congratulations. He's gone absolutely huge. But yeah, I don't think he's a must-have for this week. Second row feels a little bit tough at the moment. Ellie Katoa's got a higher break-even, so you're probably not wanting to invest. Angus Crichton's back this week, but he's got a lot of games that he's going to miss due to Origin. Fafita's on the bench. Olaquatu's an Origin risk and also has a high break-even. Azayo's solid, but probably going to miss games through Origin. Jacob Preston. That's another back rower that I was not thinking of earlier when someone was asking, is Lucas and Couchman being Origin Smokies? I think Preston actually ranks above them as well. And even Preston, he's 724k. So yeah, second row feels like a tough place to make trades for guns at the moment if you're buying new. So like I'm kind of just settling with my second row forward as it is. I've already got Ellie Katoa, which helps. But like Matty Nicholson, for example, even with Hosking back, he played 80 minutes. So that was very encouraging to see. So I don't think Nicholson's like a must urgent sell. I've got Naf White playing there doing a job. I've got like a Tino. I've got Corey Horsburgh. Like I've got guys there who are doing very solid as it is. People are asking, is Horsburgh a sell? Look, his output is down because his minutes are down. So the last 3 weeks, his minutes have reduced to 52, 45, and 48. Earlier in the season, he was kind of playing more mid to high 50s. He's not a sell, in my opinion, with a break-even of 55. I think let's wait till round 12. If he plays Origin, then I think we can have the discussion at that point. But right now, he just doesn't feel like he's going to be your biggest problem in your team, in my opinion. So I don't think, for me, Horsburgh is a sell. James is asking, is Matty Nicholson a sell? Allows me to get Lucas and Marzu. So I'm going to think while I have some water. I don't think so because Nicholson has showed good upside, and the way that, the Raiders play, a lot of their forwards generally get the attacking stats and the tries, not so much maybe the outside backs. Dolphins at home, I think, is a good matchup. Dolphins have got a few injuries with Marshall King. If we think that Max Plath is going to eventually be out as well, then, even more of an understrength team. His break-even's 58 as well. I think if he puts in another low game, then he could potentially be a sell next week if he has a high break-even. For me, the most encouraging thing, though, was that he played 80 minutes. That's all I wanted to see. If you played like 55, 60 minutes, I'd probably say, you know what, you can look to sell. The fact that he played 80, though, I think I'm in the hold camp still with Nicholson. And he covers round 12, which is very handy as well. Ideally, I'd be finding other avenues to get in those other two guys. A bit of a cop-out answer, I know. But yeah, that probably doesn't feel like a massive upgrade to me. And yeah, with Canberra, no buys until round 15. So their players are very helpful from a buy perspective. Is Olukwatu a sell? Yeah, look, if you wanted to move on Olukwatu, I think that's completely fine because he's got Penrith this week and then he has the buy and then he comes back to the Sharks. He's got a high break even, so he's going to lose a little bit of money. You can move, like who you're moving to though is probably the more difficult question. I don't know who's standing out as like a good long-term option. But if you've got the duels to get you could sell to Lucas, for example. I don't hate that. If I own Hamali Olukwatu, I probably wouldn't be selling him to Lucas this week because Olukwatu in his own right is still good. And the price differential between the two is probably not going to be massive even next week. So I'd probably, with an Olukwatu owner's view, hold him for this week and then sell next week for Lucas, just so you can see Lucas get through one game and be unscathed. That's only if you're selling for Lucas. Other guys, I understand it if they obviously don't have that problem. All right, I haven't spoken about hookers at all, so I'll quickly mention that because I know some people might be looking there for Harry Grant replacements. Connor Watson for me is not an option to buy. I know he's like the third most traded in player, but as we said before, he's just going to miss a lot of games during Origin. For me, it's the Sharks players. It's Blake Brayley and Cam McInnes, I think, are your best bets. If you're happy to spend a little bit more at hooker, decent buy schedule. They play round 12. They also play round 15. Not probably going to be risks of Origin. Cam McInnes, I'm actually probably leaning a bit more to McInnes. He's super rock solid. Like he's averaging 59 for the season, which is completely fine. Good work rate. Like he's generally basing. If you look at his base, if you look at Cam McInnes' base every game this season, 63, 51, 76, 52, 55, 52, 51. He's never going to score less than 55, basically, pretty much 50 to 55 every week. He's not a headache, and he's dual, which is really handy. He's got secondary forward hooker status. So I think if you're looking for a hassle-free, no-headache option, very boring, but I think McInnes is your guy. Brayley's got a little bit lower work rate, but he's got a bit more attacking upside in him. I'd probably just stick with the boring route and get McInnes if you're selling a Harry Grant. Otherwise, Brayley, you free up another kind of 50 to 55k. Marnie, Appy, Robson, even Wade Egan. I'm not overly keen on any of them really. And Jeremy Marshall King's also out for this week. So it's really the Sharks players that I'll be looking at. Slightly favour McInnes just because of his slightly safer floor and the dual status I really like. But as Hugh was saying here, he's saying Blake Brayley is the man we want. Yeah, look, I can't fault Blake Brayley. And the Sharks do have a decent buy schedule as well. That's all I really wanted to say about hooker. To be honest, it's like the 5'8". It's a pretty average position. If you wanted to free up a lot of money, you could just go down to like a Riley Smith. But if you're happy to spend a little bit more, if you're selling a Harry Grant, and I think Harry Grant is a fine sell. He's going to be out for like 2 to 3 weeks, and then he goes into Origin. So yeah, for me, McInnes or Blake Brayley are your guys that you want, in my opinion. Going to captaincy for this week. So let's touch on that very quickly. 409 people watching. I think we've now passed the record from last week, which is amazing. I think we peaked at 405 last week. So thank you everyone for tuning in. Means a lot. And yeah, please do give the stream a like if you've been enjoying it. So yeah, captaincy for this week is there's a few decent options. The four that stood out to me, not standard out, was Tedesco, Pappy, Drinkwater, and Cleary. I'm probably taking Pappy out of this list now with Meaney back. Of course, if we get concrete information that Pappy's still goal kicking this week, I think he's probably the best vice captain. Rabbitohs have been the worst at defending opposition fullbacks so far this year. He generally gets all of his big scores at Amy Park. I'm just going to quickly fact check this, but if I look at this season so far, he scored 131 at home, 136 was at home, and then 78 was at Suncorp, but his 2 tons this year have both come at home. If we find out he's goal kicking, I will probably put vice captaincy on Pappenhausen earlier in the round. And then for captaincy, me personally, so I went the super safe, boring option last week of Terrell May, which was very good in the end because apart from Cleary, he pretty much outscored most of the other popular captains, scored a try, which is amazing to see. I'll probably captain Cleary, I think, this week. A bit of a return to form last week with the ton. Manly at home, I think, is good. Manly can be a bit suspect on their edges. Hines against the West Tigers, I think Hines is probably not a genuine captain option. Terrell May, Payne Haas, of course, you can go there. The thing with Payne Haas, so he plays early in the round, and just the Bulldogs, I just don't feel like captaining anyone against the Bulldogs, to be honest. So Haas is good, but I've said it many times, I prefer Terrell May as a captain over him. I just think his minutes are generally always safer. Like Terrell May played 80 minutes on the weekend. And the Sharks, they play a lot of their game through the middle as well. So, Terrell May is probably good for a 70, 80 in this one. But I'm favouring Cleary, I think, as captain. Drinkwater, if you bring in Drinkwater this week, very, very good matchup at home to the Titans. Between Pappy and Drinkwater, assuming Pappy doesn't goal kick, then I would put the vice captain on Drinkwater. If Pappy's goal kicking, then I'd probably lean a bit more to Pappy. Cleary still feels like just the safe captain. I think it was good to see Penrith do well again last week. And I like that matchup at home to Manly, who can concede points on their day. Teddy's a very good, safe vice captain option this week as well on the Anzac Day clash, which he generally does perform quite well in. If you own Teddy and Pappy, again, I'd probably prefer to take the VC on Pappy if he's goal kicking. If we don't get any kind of news and you're just guessing, I'd probably just play it safe and just stick with Teddy. Teddy scored 65 on the weekend and he based 19. He's never going to really base that low again. That was probably just a function of a very tough, Penrith team that he was coming up against. Payne Haas, Terrell May, your safe options. I could put KP in this list here, but who does KP play? Newcastle have, I'm just going to remind myself. I've got it somewhere in these slides. Newcastle have got the Warriors away. Yeah, Ponga doesn't really feel like a captain option. Also, I don't think people are probably looking at captaining Ponga just with how he's been going the last few weeks. But yeah, so I'm currently on VC Paps and Captain Cleary. Archie Rusty is saying Purdue pod captain against the Titans. I couldn't captain Purdue. It just made me too nervous. For me, captaincy, I just need to stick with the tried and tested guns who've got either like a safe 70, 80 in them through work rate or just goal kickers. Purdue's neither of the two, so I don't think I could captain Purdue in good conscience, to be honest. Martin Lau has become a member as well. Thank you very much. Very much appreciate that. Haas could trample the Dogs. I don't know, man. I don't love captaining anyone against the Dogs as it currently stands. Who replaces Kane Bradley? It'll be Will Warbrick when he comes back into the team eventually. It is good to be here. Thank you, sir, says Mr. TJ Penno. That is very, very kind of you. All right, let's get into my team, and then we'll probably wrap up the stream because we've been yapping on for a good old while. So I just want to make sure you guys can actually see this. So with my team at the moment, as I said before, I think, look, I've got already Watson, so he's just going to stick there with me. Front row is no problem with Payne Haas, Terrell May, and Corey Horsburgh. Excuse me. Second row, good enough with Eli Katoa, Tino, and Naf White. I'm happy to play Naf White as well. Nat Butcher's out for a good amount of time. Lindsay Collins is still out. I like that matchup on Friday against the Dragons. And I think if he gets 55 plus minutes, look, hopefully he just bangs out on the 60 plus points. He was really good on the weekend. And of course, I didn't play him. And I'll play Matty Nicholson as well. Now that we know he's hopefully playing 80 minutes. And I think it's a good matchup at home to the Dolphins, who've got a few outs. I've got the reserve on Dylan Egan as it currently stands, but that's subject to change because I think that matchup on Friday is tough against the Roosters. Cleary's currently my cap. Munster. I've got excuse me. I've got Jerome Hughes in reserve. I'm not playing Dewey against the Sharks at home. I think that's just a tough matchup. So he's just going to be sitting there. And yeah, centres, Garrick, Carraz, Purdue, all locked in for this week. And as it currently stands, I've got Jenkins playing against Manly. And then I've got Paps, Gutherson, and Iongi on the bye. And I've got VC on Paps. Thank you, Paul, for becoming a member. Very much appreciate that as well. And Martin Lau, what is going on here? $50 donation. That is outrageous. Enjoy the coffees on me this week. Next stream, slick the hair back. Congrats on record viewers. Martin, that is very much appreciated. That is super, super kind. I will definitely put some gel in for you next week just for that. Yeah, guys, you don't need to be... Obviously, that's very, very generous. I love that. But there's absolutely no need for you guys to have to put in donations. Of course, I appreciate it so much. But no. Times are tough. Keep your hard-earned money. You don't need to be shouting me coffees all the time, guys. Don't worry. I can buy my own coffees as well. It's all good. But I will definitely be thinking of you when I buy my coffee tomorrow morning, Martin. Thank you so much. Your team's good. Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. So I'm a bit rattled after that from Martin. Yeah. So what I'm thinking of doing this week, I think I will sell Arthur's, like even Shibasaki. He's not a must sell, but I don't like this Bulldogs matchup. And as I said before, matchups upcoming, I don't think they're amazing. So I'll most likely probably sell him as well. So Billy Smith will come in. That's pretty locked in. And I think Lucas will come in for me. So I already own Carraz. So as I said before, I want to follow it up with Lucas. I probably slightly prefer Lucas than Farnworth if I already have one of Farnworth or Carraz. So where is he? Dylan Lucas right at the top. Beautiful. 86 average. So what I'd probably do in this situation then, I don't even need to boost. I'd probably sit Jenkins. I'd sub in Dylan Lucas and I'd probably play Billy Smith against the Dragons. Then my reserves would be Billy Smith, Hughes, Nicholson and Horsburgh. So that team could be solid enough as it is. I think these two trades are very, very likely to happen. What I've just been dabbling with is boosting. And if I need to boost this week. So Iongi, I can do Iongi to Drinkwater and I can have like 74k in the bank. So that looks very tempting, but I get reserve selection issues at that time because then I'm wanting to play Drinkwater. I'll have to play, I'd be sitting then I'm definitely playing Jerome Hughes. So I'd be playing Hughes, Drinkwater. I couldn't sit Gutherson. So yeah, Drinkwater, Hughes, Billy Smith would probably be locked in. And then Horsburgh. I'd probably sit Matty Nicholson, but this is one of the issues I had last week, which I need to get better at, is forcing in trades to actively bench people who are completely fine to play. I find that that's something I do struggle with a lot, is I force in these trades to get in good options and then I sit people who were more than fine to play. And I could have saved myself to either a boost or a trade and been better off for points. So I've got that in the back of my head, especially when I know that Iongi is not changing in price this week, and I think my reserves are fine. The other boost that I've also considered is getting rid of Jenkins, and I do have enough money then to get in like a Farnworth, or I can get in Marzu. So for example, if I went Marzu, so going both Knights players, I still have 130k in the bank. Gives me a bit of wiggle room to upgrade Iongi down the track, or maybe upgrade like a Nicholson. Then again, similar thing with my reserves. I'd probably be sitting Matty Nicholson at that point, or I'd be sitting Naff White, which is fine. I can still do that. But yeah, so I think Arthur Shibasaki to Billy Smith Lucas locked in. It's just whether I boost like Iongi to Drinkwater, or maybe a Jenkins to a Marzu, or I can even go like I can go all the way up to Farnworth. And then my centers are like rock solid. I've got Garrick, Carraz, Farnworth, and Dylan Lucas, plus Billy Smith, plus Purdue. This starts giving me benching headaches, but that's fine. I guess it's a good problem to have. And leaves me like 8k in the bank. So yeah, let me know what you guys are thinking. Whether you think... So my main dilemma is Iongi to Drinkwater. I can't afford Tedesco, so I'll quickly show you guys. I think the only way I can afford Tedesco is if instead of Lucas... Yeah, see... I can do this. I can do Arthur's and Iongi to Teddy and Billy Smith. The reason I'm a little bit iffy on Teddy, as I said earlier, it's just that round 10, I think I'm going to really struggle. because then I'm going to have Teddy, Toya, Billy Smith, Naf White, and Connor Watson, and Sanders Smith. That's so many Roosters players who are going to be missing out. I think for my own team, for me, it doesn't probably work, I think, to bring in Teddy, which is why I was looking at maybe instead getting Drinkwater. But I'm really keen on Lucas. So I think him and Billy Smith are definitely coming in. It's just whether I decide to boost Iongi to Drinkwater, or do I do Jenkins up to like a Farnworth or a Marzu. Those are my two decisions. Yes, I'm a little bit worried about Lucas's hammy, Mr. Callio, but got to risk it for the biscuit. That's what they say, isn't it? Sorry, I just need to quickly get my charger. Laptop's about to die, which we don't want. All right, we're probably hitting a record for the longest stream ever as well. But let's take a couple of questions for the next few minutes, and then we'll probably wrap it up. Actually, before I say that, Iongi to Ponga. What does everyone think about that? Just getting KP, and I still have 185k in the bank. Honestly, I don't know. That could be madness, just the way that he's going. But the next 4 weeks of Ponga look pretty good. They look pretty good. Nah. Most likely I won't do that, but I'll think about it. Boost for Drinky, says Blaze. Is that you or mine in the Kenago ad? I have no idea what you're talking about, mate. Sorry, Harry. Iongi to Jalen de Groot. Nah, I'm not really a fan of de Groot. So I know he scored okay on the weekend, but his work rate is terrible. Like, he based 23 on the weekend. To be fair, the week before 30. But yeah, 267k, break even to 4. I don't think he's one of those cheapies I look at and is going to make mass cash. And he feels like he'll be a bit of a slow burn. Granted, he's probably got that jersey for a long time now. But yeah, not for me personally. Savala or Kane Bradley, says Jonah. Kane Bradley is going to be a bit of a... Hugo Savala has also got dual. He's second row forward, 5'8". He's probably got better job security. But second row forward centering status is very useful. I think I'd probably go Savala. I think his job security is just better. Granted, he's not like an amazing Supercoach scorer. Like, he's going to score you like low 20s, but at least Bradley, he's got short-term job. He's got job security risks once Warbrick is back. It's not the worst thing in the world. Actually, no, I changed my answer. I'd go Kane Bradley because I think the second row forward centering duel is more useful. And if he drops out of the squad, that's fine. He can just act like as enough for you. You can use your flex. I can use my flex. Oh, I see what you're saying. So you're saying to sub Gutherson to... Oh, okay. So what you're suggesting is maybe instead of Iongi to Drinkwater, I could go like Iongi to like a Farnworth or something. I don't hate that, actually. I don't hate that. Good idea, Blaze, because that way that actually leaves me with less selection headaches because you just have a gun in your flex. Actually, I take that back. That doesn't really change anything. But yes, I can use my flex to get in any guy that I want if I want to sell like an Iongi. But I don't know, my gut's kind of thinking he's looking good, man. I think it could be a decent hold. Ope £4.99 or 4. We're dealing in pounds now. Thank you so much, Ope, for that. Very generous. I'm trading Lucas in, but not sure who to trade out between Nicholson, Horse, and Carrigan. Oh, geez. All three are good options. I'd probably lean towards one of the Origin guys, just because they're more likely going to be someone you will eventually sell. Whereas Nicholson, not playing Origin. Canberra actually have a good buy schedule. So it's one of Horse or Carrigan. What's Carrigan averaging this season? 65. Horse is probably about the same, isn't he? I think I'd sell Horsburgh. I think with Carrigan, he's generally safer for minutes than Horsburgh is. So yeah, I think it's probably Horsburgh out, but don't love it in terms of, he's still good, but yeah, I'd lean towards one of the Origin guys. Greg Marzio or Dylan Lucas. I think Lucas for me. I don't know, a bit biased, but I love that guy. He's such a good owner in Supercoach, just knowing you can bank like 65, 70 points every week. Marzio's got the negative break, even though I do understand that. So again, that's something I'm thinking about as well. Do I even just get both of them? Thoughts on Latrell? If you don't own, he's not a buy. If you already own, honestly, I would be okay selling Latrell, just because he's got that really high break even and he's likely going to be missing games through Origin. Start Starling or Sanders Smith. I think in this game, I'd probably actually rather start Sanders Smith. He's goal kicking, and I think it's a good matchup against the Dragons on Anzac Day. Would I trade out Jenkins and get Lucas, or trade out Iongi for Jerome Hughes? I would be getting Lucas instead. Jerome Hughes has got to be pretty high break even. Lucas or Karaz. I think I'm still preferring Karaz though, out of those two. Alright guys, probably going to wrap up the stream there. That's been going on for plenty of time, but thank you all for tuning in. Another record stream in terms of viewers, which is outrageous. Thank you so much for tuning in. Please do give the stream a like if you enjoyed it. I'll publish the audio as well for this. So yeah, please do give the stream like 5 stars on Spotify and stuff if you enjoy it. That helps me just get more views over on those platforms as well, rather than YouTube. But yeah, thank you everyone for tuning in. We'll wrap this one up. Hopefully you all enjoyed it, and catch you all in the next one. Cheers.